Yeah, so I'm just like looking for fungi. We're at Mary Cairncross Reserve, which is a beautiful place, and I always find fungi here. And because it's been so dry lately, you might have noticed, there's actually not much fungi, but I'll guarantee we'll find something. But basically, when you're looking for fungi, you just get attuned to just always scanning. You just do it because you know that that's where they grow. If you're into birds, you look up. So it's either one or the other. It's really hard to be both. So I just basically walk around and I just scan, and you'll be amazed what you find. Once you find one type of fungi, you'll just start seeing them everywhere. Lots of people tell me, oh, after I've discovered fungi, I'll just keep seeing them everywhere. So yes, in dry conditions, they won't be so prevalent. They won't just be everywhere, but sometimes when it's wetter or just when you strike it lucky, you'll see some amazing gifts in nature in the form of fungi. So don't be afraid that if you go out and you don't see any, that's okay. But when you do go out when it's wetter weather, you'll get a lot of treasures out there. So fungi can come in different shapes and forms, and this particular one here, it might look like nothing when you just walk by it, but actually you realize there's this patch, and this patch is actually a fungi. And it doesn't really grow like a fruiting body, like that sticks out like in some fungi forms, but it just forms this paint, and some people call them paint fungi or crusts. So they sort of just wrap around. The fruiting body still will produce spores because all fungi produce spores. The reason why they make their fruit is to have a surface to release spores from. And the spores you can think of as seeds or pollen from flowers, and it goes and gets released into the atmosphere. And when it gets released, it's then able to go and find another spore, and together they'll start growing mycelium or mycelium. And this mycelium will just keep growing and growing and growing. And if it's in the right spot and it feeds on something that it likes to feed on, it will eventually produce another fruit to make more spores. And even though we might not look at this as a fruit, it actually is a surface that produces the spores that are released into the atmosphere. So these are a type of fungi called crusts, and as you can see, it's growing on the wood, so it's not growing on a root of a plant. So before we spoke about how plants need these symbiotic partners to be fed, whereas in this case, the tree has died or dropped a branch, and now this branch has to be decomposed back into the soil. So the decomposer fungi are the guys that actually do this decomposing. And that piece of wood will eventually, through the forces of this beautiful fungi, become basically soil again. It would just be like sawdust to start with, and then mix in with the soil. Other organisms, microscopic fungi and microscopic bacteria, will churn it down to smaller bits. And guess what happens then? Can you think about what might happen with those nutrients that are made from this piece of wood? They will get picked up by the mycorrhizal or the root symbiotic, the root partner fungi, and be fed back to the plant. So the plant is virtually eating itself in a way, because it's dropped its limb. It's now getting decomposed by these guys called decomposers, and then it gets decomposed so much that eventually it becomes just mineral form again, and then other organisms, including the partners on the roots of that plant, will suck it back up. Isn't that a cool recycling process? So we can learn a lot from fungi because they're world's greatest recyclers, really. And they have this capacity to decompose many substances, including poisons. So they're very, very good for the environment. All right, let's go find some more mushrooms. So we've just found some bracket fungi. These are fungi they don't really have a central stem. They kind of come out on the side, and these have a little stem, but they really come out like a bracket out of the tree that they're feeding on. So the mycelium, or the body of the fungi underneath these fruiting bodies, is now consuming this wood. And you can see look how amazing it is in terms of being able to break it. So the fungi have done this. They decomposed it enough that it now becomes like sawdust. So some will eat the really hardy part of the tree. So the really hard part is what makes trees grow tall, and that's called lignin. And when fungi decompose lignin, they leave white. See this white part here? So this is what they leave behind, and we call that white rot. because the lignin or the hard part has been eaten and you've got this soft tissue paper-like material left behind. And sometimes the fungi will eat, or eventually they will only eat the white part and leave all the brown stuff behind, and we call them brown rots. So it's really cool because this one's having both effects. So there are fungi on this log. The mycelium is decomposing both. You can see a bit of the brown lignin and a bit of the white cellulose. So I don't know what these guys are doing, but they're eating either the cellulose or the lignin. But look how beautiful these are. These are actually cold when they're nice and wet, like that new one over there. We can film it probably later. But what these are called are turkey tails. See how that looks like a turkey tail? And one of the ways to identify fungi is to have a look at the top side of the fungi and also underside. And because this one's quite old and there are many of them here, I can pick this one off and we can have a look what's underneath. Now this is a very important identifying feature, but often it's so small to see what's under here, and these are actually little tiny pores where there's spores. Remember I mentioned spores earlier? They will come out from here. And to look at that, you often can use a magnifying glass. Oh wow, that's amazing. So this is a really nice magnifying glass or lens, magnifying lens. You look through here and you've got a little light, and I think it magnifies it maybe 20 times. So the good thing about it is you can really see the detail, and it's all lit up with a little light. So you can see the magnificent detail of what's underneath. And it's filled with tiny little pores, little holes, and the reproductive material that comes out, which is called a spore. This is where the spores will come from. And that's why they grow like this, like a bracket. And then they can release their spores, and the wind currents will sort of move them around and animals will pick them up. So cool, oh my gosh. And there's, I'm just realizing there's all these tiny little insects. What I'll do is I'll also show you some other types of magnifying lenses. This one is a really good one because it's got that light, but this one's just like a simple one that came in a little kit, like from a kid's, like a, I don't know, a $2 shop or something. It lost its light now, I think. Yeah, it doesn't have a light anymore. But this one is a jeweler's glass lens loop, and this is really cool because you can put it on your neck and wear it with you wherever you go. If I can actually open it, yep. So you can thread a rope through here and then carry it on your neck. So you can go with, with this all around wherever you go into nature. And the beautiful part about this is that you can look at all kinds of things. You don't have to just look at fungi, but you can pick up things and have a look at the microscopic texture and structure. But looking at the underside of fungi helps us to identify what they are. So scientists that study fungi, mycologists, will need to know what sort of form exists underneath a particular mushroom in order to group it and put it into a class, so classifying the fungi. And this really helps us to put them into groups and understand the science of taxonomy, which is the science of naming things. So guys, I think we have learned a lot today about the concept of what fungi do in the ecosystem, but also this concept of the wood wide web that we began our presentation with to start with. So do you remember I talked about how all the trees are connected underground through this mycorrhizal or root symbiotic fungal network? Well, this is the concept of the wood wide web, where it's like the internet system, and it literally looks like it if you actually start looking at how it functions and how it works and how it disperses information. So this is what the ecology of the forest is. It's all connected underground, and a lot of the life that happens and all the carbon that gets sequestered from the atmosphere underground happens because of these fungal networks underground feeding and interacting between trees. So I hope that you enjoyed this presentation that we did with you today, and I really hope that you sort of get yourself into the mode of thinking like a fungi. be the fungi and get out there and just go in there and document nature. I swear it's so much fun, and fungi is just one aspect of it, but there are so many cool things like insects to photograph. And in fact, when you start photographing fungi, you start seeing that there's also insects appearing and spiders appearing in your photos. So it's like a really good way to just get out there and engage. And fungi are easy because they don't run away. Like birds are hard to take photos of, and you just need your phone, pretty much, if you have one, or you borrow it from your parents. So I really encourage you to get out there and really start thinking about the wood wide web concept and all the mechanisms and things that happen in the forest in order to make the ecosystems flourish. Great to be with you guys. Enjoy, have fun, and I'll see you next time. See ya.